those individuals doing in the event of an alarm, all the way through to assessment to setting and silencing alarm, coordinating as well with first responders, fire department, so forth and so on. So specifically what are those individuals working to accomplish in those areas in the event of an alarm. From a technology standpoint, support of meeting that January 17th deadline. 50 access points are prepared and ready to go for contractor installation in the new areas. All the classrooms have at least one access point in it, and the other common areas throughout that new section. So those are items that are ready to go, and will work to support the completion of network and Wi-Fi access in the new areas. Along the same lines, in the 100 section, if you're familiar with Dr. Lewis, Mr. Staub, and Mr. Reed, all with computer labs, we've converted them to MacBook labs. Mr. Reed was the last lab to undergo that phase. So we have all of those units then ready to go to easily transition into the new section on the 17th as well. That concludes my report.
By the way, let me pause for a second because I'm really bad at this, so I'm going to do this because I keep getting yelled at when I go home. Dr. Fialski, Dr. Naylor, Dr. Grayman, and Michelle. Thank you for your report because I always forget to thank you. And trust me, I go home and I get it. So before I forget, this way I'll get it done, and I apologize for not doing as much in the past. You're up.
You're welcome. I thought we were going to get yelled at or something when you paused like that. So just as Dr. Fiaschi said, parent-teacher conferences last week, really pleased with the outcome of that and the number of parents who were able to come in. And if they weren't able to come in, the number of phone calls that were able to be made. You've heard over the last month or so, especially I know Mr. Moran has mentioned it, the work that we're doing with Tier 1. And when we talk about Tier 1, that's what all of our kids get. So the curriculum, the resources, like the PBIS advisory. So what every single kid in our district should get as far as instructional practices, differentiation, making sure they have on grade level access to the curriculum. So we've been doing a lot of work making sure that we're really shoring up our baseline of all of our instructional practices. So later this week, 4 of us, Dr. Becker, Mrs. Golden, Mr. Hookenauer, and myself, will be going to BIU to do a half-day workshop, just making sure we're analyzing all of those Tier 1s, and if we're missing anything, like how do we fill in those gaps. And then from there, we will keep strengthening our Tier 2 and Tier 3, and there will be more of that coming at a committee presentation later this year. So we will be working more on that and bringing that to you. And then lastly, this week I'm working with second year teachers. We will be really focusing on how we're setting high expectations for all of our kids. So that Tier 1, again, like every single kid, what are our expectations? How are we talking to them about our expectations? And how do we hold them accountable for our expectations? So we'll be focusing on that this week, as well as talking about collaboration. And you know this from coming home, Janelle knows this from being in the business. You cannot do this job, and Brian, sorry. You cannot do this job in isolation. So why it's so important to collaborate, why it's so important not to think that you have all of the answers, and how to be a good team member on your grade level or subject matter team, or on any team that you're on. So those would be our 2 areas of focus. And then first year teachers, we are going over to Oxford, and that meeting will focus on how we're using technology for learning, and how are we embedding that in our learning. I know we always hear like kids are on computers too much. I think that was brought up in the committee meeting. But it's not really to put them on computers too much, but when they are on a computer, what are they doing and how are they using it? So that's what's on our agenda for the next month. So, any questions?
up.
Jump in my chair, go
You
ahead.
can, wherever you feel comfortable.
So as you know, winter sports started November 15th, their preseason. The first kickoff for the boys and girls basketball is tomorrow. The first official game is tomorrow. Boys are home, girls are away. And wrestling opens up on Thursday at Littlestown. So that's where it's all going to start, and it's not going to end until hopefully a long time, until March. Both basketball and wrestling teams are competing in early season tournaments this weekend. They're also competing in holiday tournaments over Christmas, so they'll be busy over Christmas as well. And all of them are away. For coaching and staff, I'm currently interviewing candidates for the junior high soccer assistant coach position. That'll fill up our coaching support staff for the spring. And for community engagement, our basketball team, I'm not sure if everyone knows this, but over the break, they hosted a kids' night out on November 29th. So they babysat all the kids so the parents could go Black Friday shopping. So that was a very neat idea, and they had boys and girls basketball team babysit all the kids in the gym. They played, and the parents went out and shopped. So I thought that was a great way to promote community engagement with our basketball team. And pretty much goals moving forward, just ensure a smooth transition into the winter season, and being attentive to schedules, transportation, and that stuff. That's it.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you. All right, Ruth. Holiday of the evening. The regular meeting. I'm going to pause here for a soapbox session. If you have any comments, concerns, corrections on the board minutes, they need to be given to Carrie prior to the meeting by email so that we can all review them prior to it. It's unacceptable to bring it to the meeting. If you're noticing it at the last minute, and if you had that problem, then we've got an issue. You were responsible for going over all the information. Tom makes presentations at work sessions. You need to be going over and looking at those presentations and knowing what's going on so that Tom isn't regurgitating exactly what he just said. Or Dr. Berryman regurgitating exactly what she said in her curriculum meeting. It is your responsibility to do it and be prepared for the meetings. It's sort of come to my attention that people are asking questions that were asked at the committee meetings or answered there. You know, if you can't make it, that's fine. But all the information is there. You need to get with the appropriate people so that it's done ahead of time.
Okay, are you saying, ask in the work session and not in the regular
No,
session? Or
I'm
email
asking,
before the work session?
as far as board minutes go, when we get to the voting session,
Okay. Well,
we
it
should be
already been
bringing
asked
that,
for.
right, should already been asked and answered. As far as that goes, in work session, that's when you bring up, ask something from the committee meeting, so that, but it should already, this should be your time to bring it up, not again at the voting session. Unless you have a question, I'm not saying that we're not gonna, that I don't want you to bring it up, but if you need some further clarification, that's work session, but the voting session, if you still need further clarification even more, that should be done, but it should be, Tom should be regurgitating his meeting, his presentation from the committee, then again at the work session, and the third time at the board minutes, at the board, voting session. Okay, that's it. All right. Does anybody have any problems with the board minutes?
Well, we couldn't even look at it.
Yeah.
The minutes are not linked this
Right.
time around, with the short week.
Right.
So you will all get the minutes in an email tomorrow.
So,
Short week, other work days.
with that said, I would duly ask and hope that we could all have them read and looked over
By the way.
prior to meeting, but obviously with the short turnaround for Ms. Mulner, we'll make an exception if something comes up. But,
You'll have them in your email tomorrow.
yeah. Okay. All right.
You can send it to us, and we will.
Yes, and send your corrections back and send it to all of us so that we can look at it. But yeah. Okay, Steve, you're up.
All right, any questions on finance, property supply, committee report we had committee last week?
I want to know why we can't look at the general fund checks or anything. Why?
Again, short week, and the month had completed by the time you posted, they accepted. So those funds will be in this month, and they're still posted all the time. So those will be
So the exception is,
same thing, just
So,
to answer the question about the FMX reports later, those weren't able to be due until the first, technically, today's the second, on the live document. This is active as of last.
But here's the problem with that. I understand what you're saying, but like Carl just reiterated, he doesn't want a whole lot of questions in the regular meeting.
no, that's all I'm saying. I'm saying if you'd like the meeting notes for these sessions, that should all be done ahead of time. In this case, this is an exception because we had a tremendous fast turnaround from the end of the month. We never really meet this fast. Yes, this has to be this week.
So you're saying if they're available for the work session, ask for the work.
Right, if they're available at the work session, please ask. If they're not available, this next meeting will be the exception that we're gonna have some rough time to fix through because we had such a turnaround due to state law. So, yes, ask and answer any questions that you need. Yeah. Did that? So nobody's gonna be, and I'm never gonna say, no, you can't ask that question in the board meeting at any point, just trying to keep things going.
So you're saying they're gonna be linked tomorrow?
So you all have access to the live document in
Yeah.
your shared drive. This document is only accurate as of Friday when we posted the agenda for everyone to public.
Right.
So this is not a live document. The live document that lives in our shared drive has a lot of this stuff, like today I was in the FMX, those are there.
Right.
Some of the minutes are already there. So if you monitor that document, you'll see the changes happening as they come.
so you actually can access the information and not have to wait for you folks to appear.
If it's all-
As a board
Right,
member.
as a board. So I'm just saying, you can do your research if you want to and put your input and ask the questions. That's
It's active in there and you all have access.
Thank you very much.
So that,
Does anybody have any questions? Finance?
order on that side. Any further questions for Steve? All right, we're on to personnel.
Yeah. I did have some questions.
Okay,
We're still in the finance and property.
yep.
I want to know about this ground floor HVAC and pneumatic upgrade. This was never on the list of things back when we started this project, so what is this all about?
It was originally on the documents that were presented to the state last year for the grant.
And I'll just add that, they were on the 10-year capital project, so we're coming up that they weren't part of the existing middle school, high school, which is correct, but they were always to be addressed at a certain point in time. So they were coming to end of life, so we were going to have to address, or we're going to have to address them in the 10-year capital project list. We just had the opportunity to be able to get money to the state for the grant to do it now. So that's where this came into light, was to speed up that process with the grant application. So the next 2 years, we're going to sell that on the 10-year capital project and help upgrade and replace the HVAC and pneumatic.
No, I don't want to sound crazy here, but I want to ask, what's the pneumatic upgrade?
The pneumatics is kind of a system that pushes out the heat, so that's out end of life, because that was the original build.
It pushes out.
Yeah, it puts our heating control.
Oh, okay.
It's only heating down.
Okay, it's controlled with that. Now, is that the HVAC that you're talking about ground floor? You're not doing that with the room with the garage door, are you?
Correct, that's what this document would show that that's going to be reduced down to only replacing the heating element there and then only adding cooling in the classroom spaces.
Classroom spaces, that's what I thought you said. That's the end. I just wanted to clarify that. Oh, wait a minute. There's one more question I have in the treasurer's report. Tom, this is for you. I noticed in your last presentation at the NS meeting that you had a figure on 630 saying that we were 95% expenditures, but on 531 we were only 80%, a little over 80%. Why did we jump, and why was it a lot of instructional? Like, I see 98% for regular education and 99% for special ed. That all happened when the students weren't even here.
So that is the payout for all the teachers, so they get paid throughout the whole summer.
Oh.
So they get paid, so the snapshot as of May, we have a lot of expenses that we have to pay in June, that just funnel through, and they continue, for auditing reasons, for 60 days after the close of June, collect all the information that would have been reported, that just timing-wise put 60 days after the close.
So that jumped it from 80% to 95%.
So we keep that open until the end of August, and that's why when I present, a lot of times I don't have information in August because we're still not closed the book, even though the official close is June 30th. It doesn't end county-wide until August to clean all that up.
Okay, so that would explain why it was the increase in the regular education and the special ed.
Yep.
That would explain it then, okay. I was curious about that because I saw almost a 50% increase.
Yeah, June's one
Now,
of
is that, no, I shouldn't say that, it probably does happen every year, so there's no question, but, so if we see 80% in May again, we got to assume that because of what you just said, it's going to jump.
correct.
Because you're kind of lagging a little bit there because of going in August, right?
Correct.
Okay.
If I'm correct, teachers have the option to be paid all year long or from the beginning of school to the end of school. It's their, isn't that not their
They have
option?
the option to select every bi-weekly or a lump sum.
Oh, wow. So you get a lump sum payment. Thank you for explaining. Appreciate it. That's it for,
Moving on to personnel, does anyone have any questions about any of the personnel items that are there? Basic, there's not a whole lot on there as of right now. We've got some overnight downstate troops.
Make sure that you look at the letter H, read it over, make sure you're aware of what's going on letter H. If they have any questions, that has to be done in executive session. Okay.
Nothing on personnel?
Just a question about our cleaning teacher.
Okay.
Yeah, we met with her today. She did accept, and her name will be placed, just as Carrie stated earlier. This is an old document, so the live one is available and probably has her name on it already.
You know, that pending clearances or
She's currently working for a school district,
okay.
so all those clearances should transfer, we should be fine.
Oh, do we have to wait for 60 days then, or?
We do.
On or about February 19th.
Okay, thank you. You all hear that?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
If there's nothing else on your personnel, moving on to curriculum and policy, all we have on here as of right now are policies. We'll have the discussion of first reading of four policies. One is the school calendar, which only will update there, you can move from 180 days to 900 hours for primary, 990 for secondary. We have the updated policy 805, 805.1. I believe that was the new policy on the tree, so that one is not currently on the books. 805.2 is updated as well. Those three having to do with safety and security. Does anyone, and then That's a TSPA option that you can either go to 180 or to 900 and 990, and the hours goes to sport class day. And like if we, like what he said last week, he said we have like a true snow day that we don't do a big day, and we're still at our benchmark, whatever the hours requirement is, we don't have to make it.
That's great.
Just like, we had a calendar change earlier in the school, last school year, I guess we did, where we moved the last day of school and graduation because of the parade. We don't have to make that up because of the college requirement versus the stricter days. Are there any other questions on the policies?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question if you don't mind. Who is going to be in charge of the record management?
In what policy are you using?
800, 801, storage, the management of it. Basically, any records that Littlestown has to do.
Well, every, if I'm not mistaken, in Mr. Walker, correct me if I'm wrong, every local government agency in the state of Pennsylvania has an open records officer that's designated. In the Littlestown Area School District, that is Ms. Kieran.
Okay, so that's what it is. You got a lot of work to do.
I'm also here.
No.
I received the request, and then I reached out to the appropriations.
But are we, according to this, are we storing these records somewhere? Because they talk about storage and security.
Well, I think there's parts of it that are texting, they have storage and security when it comes to email and, online